Hey, Dave Melinda here, Positive Polarity Podcast. Hope things are going awesome for you. I have a word this week that on the surface was like a negative word, and then I started to realize that there's some positive to it. So the word is disrupt. And interestingly enough, I started thinking about like disruption in the supply chain, disruption in my office, disruption in my daily activity. And then my all time least favorite is disruption for the stop and go lights. And I'm like, there's all this negative around this word. But then in preparing for today's podcast, I found somebody that has a positive side to it where we're actually disrupting our competitors, we're disrupting our customers. So I wanted to jump in today and chat with Kimjera Whittington. How are you today?
I'm great. Good to have
Awesome.
you.
So you are the founder and CEO of Evolve Global Marketing. So tell us what is going on at Evolve Global Marketing these days?
Thanks. Yeah. So I own a marketing agency. It's a branding and creative design company. And
Okay.
what we really focus on is exactly what you're talking about, Dave, disruption, really giving customers a competitive advantage in the noise and the complexity of today's online market. So we do branding and marketing and websites and sales funnels and social media and all kinds of things, but everything starts with that initial strategy on how to create a brand that will give your competitors a run for their money.
Awesome. Well, you had me at competitive advantage.
Yeah.
So, a lot of people listening today, business owners and entrepreneurs from around the world, are loving a competitive advantage. We look for it, we stay up late at night trying to find it. So, let's start there. Is it as elusive as we all think it is, or are we overthinking this competitive advantage? Help us understand what that means in your world, Kimjera.
Yeah. So really for me, it helps customers figure out how to differentiate and not just I'm a little bit different, but radically differentiate from their competitors. So finding a way to develop a strategy, to go to market, to create messaging that's different and unique and can get people to engage because people are looking for what stands out. They're not looking for another Me Too brand, another, company that is the same as everybody else. I always say sameness is like the enemy of what you're trying to accomplish in a brand.
Awesome. Well, I tell you, so I grew up in Wisconsin and we had a little airline called Midwest Express,
Mm-hmm.
and it actually totally blew up the industry back in the day because what it did, we only had two across leather seats. Everything was first class in the plane. And there were all these great amenities prior to 9/11. And
Yeah.
then about 20 minutes before we were getting ready to land, we were just enjoying sitting there, enjoying the ride. And all of a sudden, you would smell something. I'm like, oh my gosh, is that chocolate chip cookies? And sure enough, they were baking chocolate chip cookies on the plane and they were handing them out as we were landing. And I always ask people, what's your cookie? What is it that you do that nobody else does?
Mm-hmm.
Because they were truly unique and truly different in a
Mm-hmm.
world of, hey, I want to get from point A to point B the cheapest way possible. And so, that to me is that's how I ask that question is what's your cookie? What differentiates you? So, what are some common things that you hear that may be right or may be wrong when people ask that question?
Oh, first off, I love your cookie example. I might steal that,
You
Dave.
can go for it. Midwest Express, best airline ever.
Oh,
So,
oh my God, that's amazing. So yes, I think some examples are, if you think of Netflix, they've been a fantastic disruptive company, right? Back in the day when it was VHS tapes, everybody went and picked up a VHS. What did they do? They saw an opportunity for, well, why don't we just mail it to you? You don't even have to leave the comfort of your own home. So
sure.
sure enough, they grew their business instead of trying to compete with the Blockbuster and be another multi, regional franchise. They decided instead to do that. And then what did they do when streaming came along? They said, well, no one's going to want to sit at home and put in a VHS or even at that point, a DVD. They wanted to then say, let's stream. Let's become the biggest streaming company. So when you find companies that are doing that and disrupting the way that they're going to market, it's significant for the business. It's significant for those that are paying attention and wanting something that is unique. So that's one example. I don't know. Do you have any others that you can think of?
Well, I'll tell you what, here's a big question. This is a trivia question. If you know the answer to this, then you're my new hero. So,
oh no.
What does Apollo 13 have to do with Netflix?
I don't know the answer to that.
So the owner of Netflix actually went to Blockbuster, and he was 3 days late on his return. And that's how Netflix started, because he's like, imagine if I didn't have to have a late fee. He was so embarrassed, and so that's how Netflix started, was because he rented Apollo 13. Now, maybe he had it in his mind already, but that's the movie that they kind of lay out for that.
Out there. So, I love it. That's a great story.
But I mean, just think about the people listening today, Kimjera, that some new idea comes past them and they're like, oh, that's not going to work. We don't want to try that. I mean, it's sad to see a huge conglomeration like Blockbuster taken down, but the reality was they were not looking to disrupt.
Nope.
They just wanted to go with the flow.
Yep.
They wanted to make it as easy as possible. And I'm not here to say you always have to disrupt, but I think if that's not in your repertoire of how can we make this different, I think that you're missing something as a company. So my question to you is, do people come with that idea already in their mind, or are they just saying, hey, things aren't going well for me marketing wise? What's usually the impetus for somebody to call you to kind of start that dialogue?
Yeah, it's usually not on their mind at all. It's usually something that they know that their marketing isn't working. It's not effective. It's not producing results. They're not getting an ROI. They're wasting a ton of time and money. And so from that, they realize really quickly that they have to do something different, but they don't really know what that is.
Yeah.
So usually they reach out to me, they find me online, they see some of my content and they realize, okay, this could be something. Or sometimes they just hit us on our website. And then I start to talk to them when I get on the phone about disruption. And I only work with specific brands. Like, we're across any industry, any company, but if you're not a trendsetter, if you're not trying to uniquely position, if you're not open to change and being disruptive, then it's not a good fit, because that's where my creative genius comes from. That's where my flow is, and where I get super pumped up and excited. So I'm looking for people who are like me, who are saying, hey, we don't want to be the same as everybody else. We want to try something different. We don't know if that means designing our customer, if that means designing a new strategy, if that means creating a new problem or solving a different problem than we're solving, or if that means creating, messaging, leveraging story in a whole new way. We've got to figure out what the angle is. And that's usually how the conversation leads into why they would choose to work with a company like mine.
Sure. That's awesome. Well, you had me at those famous 3 letters, ROI.
Yes.
Because I have to say, being in sales my whole life, owning companies, selling companies, things like that, the interesting thing is that's a pretty high, value put on a business, is what's the return on my investment. And I think that's always given marketing like a bad rap, because, most companies, they tell you to invest a bunch of money in marketing, but there's really not a strong ROI. I mean, if I run this ad or do this thing, at least the companies that I've been exposed to in my life, there wasn't like, if you do this, then this is going to happen. I mean, yes, you'll get more people. How many, I don't know. What will they do? I'm not sure. There's kind of this vagueness around that. So that's what I really
skeptical.
Yes, no, I am. You know what? As a business owner, I'm skeptical, right? Yeah. So when I hear somebody talk about ROI on marketing, my ears perk up instantly, because, I can tell you, like from sales training, for example, Motorola found in their study that for every $1 they put into sales training, they got $19 back. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's a pretty easy deal. Okay, Kimjera, I'm going to give you $1, and then you're going to give me 19 back.
Yeah, that's a no-brainer.
Right? I'll do that all day. We can end this podcast right now. Just start sending.
Done.
I mean, that's a pretty, and there's
Yeah.
documentation, there's statistics, there's research behind that, which is awesome. How do you help somebody that's in the camp that I'm in? I'll just make myself vulnerable. I'm skeptical with somebody that says, I can find you an ROI on your marketing. So, how do you respond to that?
Yeah, I mean, but first off, it's very real. You are absolutely right. And there's a lot of people out there that are very good at a specific part of marketing. So there's a difference between marketing, between branding, between visuals, between advertising, media, PR. There's a lot of layers. And so a true strategy means you can put a return on that investment. And so if you are doing marketing and you're not actually getting a return, then you're with the wrong company and the wrong people. The way that we do it is we really look at what are we trying to create to start. So we always have to create the foundation. I always say this is not Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come.
Sure.
Right? Like marketing is not that. And anyone who tells you it is wrong. You have to build the foundation. You have to build the strategy. You have to build the messaging. You have to do the sales funnels. You have to create your website. You have to have the foundational pieces in place, and you have to be consistent across all your channels. But once you do that, then it comes to how are you going to market that strategy, right? How are you going to leverage the strategy that you created?
Yep, absolutely.
And now you have to use SEO, use advertising, use organic marketing, which is free, but there's strategy around it between social media, right? Like everybody says I do social media, and I will tell you probably 1 or 2% are getting anything out of social media.
Sure.
And it's because of how you're leveraging it and whether you're actually doing all the steps that it takes to get a return on it. So when we do an ROA, it's the foundation is the foundation. And then we say, okay, now with what we're going to go to market for, are we going to do a podcast like you're doing and help people create that?
Sure.
What's the strategy around it? And are we looking at our, key performance indicators of leads? Are we looking at revenue? Are we looking at, I always tell my team, I don't care how many people like my posts. I want leads to come in. Like I want people who actually want to do business, not just like something, because liking doesn't do anything for you.
Yep.
So I think it's those measurements. And nowadays with analytics, there's a lot, Dave, out there that you can track this stuff.
Gotcha. Well, I tell you what, so that's a misnomer that the bank will exchange you money for likes.
No,
right?
It's not happening.
I tried that, and the bank lady looked at me and thought that was funny. And I was like, no, seriously, I have all these likes. How much is this worth to me? How much will this put in my account? And there's none, right? So, but I think you touch on something that I think intrigues a lot of people, Kimjera, is that there's all these layers. Okay. So if I'm a solopreneur, if I own a small business, if I don't have a marketing team that is on my payroll and I have to, enlist services like yours, I mean, that all of a sudden I'm already feel like I'm at a disadvantage because I don't know what I'm doing. I don't understand what my goal is. I want the phone to ring. In simple terms, I want the phone to ring. So, fix that, will you? But I mean, how do you, what are some of the mistakes that you're seeing people make in marketing, whether they're trying to do it themselves or they're trying to come along with $10 a week or whatever? What are some of the mistakes that you see happen there?
So the first is not building that foundation. The second, I would say, is not leveraging storytelling. So what a lot of people do is they talk a lot about themselves. Here's who I am. Here's how great I am. Here's why you should buy from me. Right? Here's all my credibility. And they think that they have to convince somebody of their value in order to do business with them. The human brain actually works opposite. What people are looking for is someone to invite them into a story about themselves. Okay. So think about how we are as humans, right? We are trying to go through life solving our problems and making our life easier. We're not just trying to give somebody money to do something. So if we're going to pay for certain things, we're going to do it because A, it's making our life or business better, or B, it's solving a big problem we have that we don't want to deal with any longer ourselves.
Sure.
So storytelling gets that message across really well. Storytelling is a way to get people to engage with you because it's really about them. You position your brand as the guide and you let your customer become the hero. You let them win. And when you can talk that way to a customer and let them know how amazing their life is going to be when they're problem solved by your company and what you do, they're all in.
Okay.
So what businesses do as a mistake is they talk about themselves and they forget. I always say to people, you want to become Yoda, like you're the guy. It's actually the strongest character in the story is the guy.
Okay.
The hero is actually the weakest, because if they could solve their own problem, you wouldn't have a movie, you wouldn't have a book, you wouldn't have a story.
Interesting. Okay. Well, so most people don't want to be they want to be the superhero. Mm-hmm. They dress up for that in Halloween. They want to be that when they grow up. So you help people with that shift then, I'm assuming?
Yeah. So our messaging turns and flips to the conversation to be about the customer. We have to understand them first through strategy. We have to build the persona of who they are. And then we start using the language that resonates with them. So for example, if you have a brand that sells to moms, you're going to be talking about how busy life is, how complicated it is trying to wear a million hats, how much they care about their kids, right? And you're going to provide whatever product or service you are using language that the mom would go, oh my God, you get me. Yes, just help me. You understand my life and who I am and what I'm doing every day. And they're going to resonate with you when they're looking at two different companies over the company that's, here's how great I am. Here's this great product I made for your baby. And Like, believe it or not, even if it's a better product, people don't buy the best products and services, and they don't work with the best companies. They work with ones that can clearly communicate the value to the other person and invite them into a story about themselves, because we want to solve our own problems every day. We want people to help us do that.
Sure. Wow. So I have a question for you, because I wrote down the word emotion, thinking that, like what you just said, selling to a mom that's struggling with time and struggling with, jostling all these things to do. I totally understand that. For the entrepreneur or business owner listening right now, Kimjera, that is more about like I manufacture screws, or it's a commodity, or there's nothing sexy about it. I can't get emotional about a screw or whatever. How do you transition? Are your storytelling pieces always emotional, or is there kind of like a linear side to that, a fact side? How do you sell something that's not an emotional product?
So first off, you still are going to talk about the product, but you don't have to talk about every intricate detail of every widget that you put together, right?
Okay.
And yes, you are correct that some businesses are more emotional than others. However, you are still always solving a problem for somebody. It does not matter if you are a widget, a screw. There is something that is doing that is making somebody's life or business better. And so you have to tap into that. It's about understanding the customer. So we do still leverage storytelling. We just don't, the wording would be on a more professional level, let's say. It might be a little bit more about who is the person that's your customer. Maybe in a screw standpoint, like selling, that came across really bad.
That's all right. We all know what you're talking about.
Let's reframe that. Selling screw standpoint. If I am selling screws and I am a distributor, I'm thinking of, okay, who is the person? It's the purchasing agent on the other end, right? It's a purchasing manager.
Yep.
What is their life like? What are they dealing with every day? What problem does my company solve for them? Well, maybe I make customer service easier. Maybe I have a return policy that makes it, if you make a mistake purchasing, you don't get in trouble by your boss. It's flipping the conversation. There's always still something that's in it for them. And it's understanding who's the buyer. And that's where most companies go wrong. They don't have any idea who's buying. I just worked with a company recently, a technology company, and they were selling everything on their website B2C. They actually sell B2B.
Wow.
We just flipped everything around, developed a new story, redid the website. And now when their customers, their salespeople send people to their website, they're getting a story that resonates from who the person is that's actually engaging with them, not the end user who benefits from this type of service, which the person on the other end doesn't even care about. They just care that my job's going to be made easier and I'm not going to get fired from my boss,
Gotcha. Sure. Okay.
So it's finding that. And it's a real strategy to figure out what that is and come up with the right message.
Wow. That's really good. And I think that storytelling is kind of, it's intimidating to people.
Yeah.
I wrote down improv because I think to myself, if I have to be a good storyteller, maybe I should take an improv class. Maybe I should take a storytelling class, right? But the reality is if I mean, I think, you correct me if I'm wrong from your experience, but when people are sitting across from a prospect, I don't think storytelling is really top of mind. I mean, we're so product focused. We're unfortunately in my sales training, I tell people don't worry about always having to sell the product because they don't know all these characteristics. They don't really care. Back to the screw thing, they don't care the thickness, what it's made of. I mean, they do, but there's more to it than that. So, I mean, what's the first step for somebody that's never considered storytelling prior to listening to this? What's a really good place to start for
I would
somebody?
say 100% go to my website because I have a video on there that describes it.
Okay.
So that's evolveglobalmarketing.com. Number two,
Okay.
get the book Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. I'm actually a certified story brand guide through Donald Miller, and he has a book that talks all about it. He also has a book called Marketing Made Simple, where he pulls that in. And being on his advisory board, I've really, helped the ins and outs of what it's like to build these stories for big brands. And I've worked with startups up to $500 million companies and everything in between. So it doesn't matter how big or how small your company is, you can leverage these. Some people say, oh no, only small companies can, not big. Not true. I've done it all. And I use the same process no matter what the size. So if you get the book, that's a great place to at least get familiar with how leveraging story and marketing can make a difference in your business.
Wow, that's so cool. So evolveglobalmarketing.com.
Yep.
And then the book name again was what was it?
It's called Building a Story Brand.
Okay.
And it's by Donald Miller.
Building a Story Brand. Awesome.
And he also has a book called Marketing Made Simple.
Okay.
And both of those have the storytelling aspect in them. The marketing one is more related to like sales funnels and how to take the story and kind of pull it into marketing, into social media and different aspects. But the Building a Story Brand is kind of the number one foundational book that will help people understand why story works, how the human brain works, etc.
So for somebody listening again, that's super busy, they got so much, I wear all these different hats. All these people are pulling at me. The last thing I want to do is invest a whole ton of time in this. So is that really where you guys then take over for that type of person that chooses not to do that? And then you kind of jump in and help them in that setting?
Yeah, so most of the companies, we will always start. We never ever do anything without doing the brand strategy and messaging. So we start there, and that's the foundation again, and create all that. And we do it as a co-creation process with the client. But then from there, a lot of my clients will say, I want you to handle the certain aspects of my marketing, whether it's website, sales funnels, social media, podcasts, whatever. Then we can jump in and leverage the power behind the strategy, the disruption that we created, the story, and turn it into incredible marketing. So again, you got to have both sides, whether you use us or someone else. But yeah.
Well, and so you've said sales funnel like 4 times. So now I'm intrigued by this. So I want to unpack this a little bit because for a lot of people listening, and I'll even be vulnerable and say partially for me, there's a battle between the sales and the marketing, right? They tend to, in my simplest brain, I say marketing gets the phone to ring and then sales takes it from there. That's how that's how I think. And I might be huge blind spot for me. So I'm totally open, Kimjera, to what you have to say. But I'm trying to understand how marketing and what does marketing have to do with my sales funnel? Let's start there.
Yeah. So I would say when it comes to marketing and sales funnels, it's about nurturing somebody to the close. So here's another, you were asking earlier, this leads into another common mistake or common misnomer, which is that if somebody calls you and gets on a call, right, and wants to potentially use your services, Dave, that if they don't respond after that, they're not interested. Or if they download something that's free from you, they watch your podcast, and then they maybe download something and you get their email, if they don't respond, if they don't reach out to you, they're not interested. That's not true. What is true is people do not want to be sold to. They want to buy, though.
Sure.
So they want to be nurtured along to the close, which means they just want to get to know you. It's like dating. They want to, you wouldn't walk up to someone in a bar and be like, hey, want to get married? Like,
oh, wait, is there something wrong? Wait a minute. Is there something wrong with, does that not work? That strategy doesn't work.
I'm very nervous for you if that's what's happened. People don't do that. What they do is they go in and they say, hey, I think you're awesome. Would you like to grab a cup of coffee with me? Think of every piece of content you create as a cup of coffee. It's another interaction. Sure. So sales funnels give you the ability to create free content to start with, to give somebody to exchange an email, and just getting them with free content, email by email, to get them to know you. It's nurturing a relationship. It's building, first you go out and get coffee, then you might go have lunch, then you might go see a movie, right? And by the time you've had 4, 5, 6 dates, you might say, you know what, maybe I'll have a conversation with this person. Maybe I will get to know them. Sales funnels give you that ability over time. What a lot of business owners do is they do 1 or 2 emails or 1 or 2 interactions, and they're like, well, they must not be interested. Yeah. And they miss out on tens of thousands of dollars in sales and leads and opportunities.
Gotcha. So so I'm hearing that starts at the marketing spot. So there's kind of a little bit of a blurry line where marketing stops and sales starts.
And it goes to, and then it restarts again.
Yeah.
So again, okay, for your people who are in sales, and by the way, I have a 23-year career in sales. I ran big sales and marketing for big medical companies.
Cool.
So I managed 60 plus teams.
You started when you were 9, right? Nice job. That's awesome.
I love that.
That's so cool. Good job.
You're my new best friend now. I'm going to pay you for that later. So yes, so when what happens in sales is you've got to market to get the lead in. Okay, then you hope they book the call.
Yep.
If they don't book the call, you got to nurture till they book the call. Once they book the call, then you got to nurture after that. So what do a lot of sales people do, right? They go, oh, they haven't gotten back to me. I'll get back to them in a while, and they forget to ever go back and to re-nurture that. And maybe right now wasn't the right time, but 6 months from now is the right time. And so if you've been periodically nurturing them along with that longer sales cycle, eventually they will buy. And it just takes time. The average that I have seen for a lot of businesses is 1 year. It takes 1 year for people to be nurtured until they actually move into a close, especially when it's a cold lead.
Sure. Wow. Yeah. So here's my, might as well just get it out there. I'm a high D on the disc. So like, I can't wait a year for anything. So, I'm like,
you're like me.
Right. So it takes really discipline in order for somebody that's the shiny object syndrome, to be able to really capture that information and really turn it into something positive. And I always ask people the question, hey, if you have, this will date me, if you have those pink sheets that leave a message, and you had 2 of them on your desk and you had one from a new prospect and one from an existing customer, which one do you call back first, right? Usually there's no right or wrong to it, but usually the answer gives you a pretty good indication of where they're at in their mind. Because like for me, no offense to all my existing clients listening today, I love you guys. When I see that versus a new opportunity, I just jump on that new opportunity. Like it's so natural to just do that.
That's interesting. Yeah. What a cool way to look at it. Yeah. I think it's, the good news is marketing can be your best friend, especially if it's automated, because those new prospects and existing prospects are getting touched. They're getting that touch point. That is not you having to do it. Yeah. So my answer would be both could be touched that day.
Sure. Yeah.
If you've got good stuff happening on the back end. And the cool thing about content creation and marketing, especially when you're doing automated things, once you create a piece of content, it can be put online and it doesn't have to be a one and done. It lives on. So then the next people that come in get added into that same thing. And maybe 3 months down the road, they're getting the same content you produced today, 3 months from now, but they're ready for it 3 months from now. So you're nurturing them along till they're ready for that particular piece of content. Wow. And it's value. It's just providing value to people. I always say it's building relationships online. It's just building relationships with people. And we don't have the ability nowadays with how fast it is to be having these types of conversations with every single prospect.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think it's crazy how much investment of time and energy entrepreneurs put in on product knowledge, and they put in on operations, and they want all these systems to be put in place on, how to invoice and deliver all this back end, which is fantastic. And then you ask them, what does your sales funnel look like? What does your sales pipeline, your sales process look like? And then you get that deer in the headlights look, because they just don't know what to do. Somebody calls, I answer the phone, and then I leave a message, and then maybe I'll call again, like you said, and then they must not be interested. I mean, the statistics show how much time and energy has to be expended up front before we actually get somebody to trust, know, like, and trust us, right? And it's like, people don't understand. I laugh when you walk down the mall, back when the malls were open in the world, and there's these little kiosks in the middle, right? And there's a guy selling gutter replacements or whatever, right? And man, if you catch his eyes, you're done.
You walk down looking down.
Yeah, exactly. Or you're looking at your phone, or you pretend you're on the phone. I mean, I've done them all, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's funny because on one hand, the expectation is, I don't know you, but I'm going to allow you on my roof or in my house. I mean, it's so weird because there's no connection there. So, and I'm not saying those are bad companies. It's got to make that sales funnel really hard, because if I do happen to give my name to that individual, there's not a lot of nurturing that goes on between the time I gave my name and the time that you walk into my house. So,
and imagine how more effective that call is and how it turns into a warm call if they sent pieces of content even in between. Hey, we know you want to call. Thank you so much. Here's a little bit about us. And then next you get a video, and that video is just a little blurb. Hey, I just wanted to say hello and introduce myself. I'm going to be showing up to your house. People would be like, whoa, you have to use these guys,
Absolutely.
Just because there's some kind of a human connection, and next thing you know, you're relatable.
Yeah.
Right. You're of like kind. I always say, why do people love the people who go to the same universities? It's like you can meet somebody in a bar and be like, hey, you're from USC. I'm from USC. Dude, let's drink together. Like, like kind. And like, you don't even know this person, but because you went to the same school, you must be the same amazing person. And I love that humans are like that. And we have to understand that that's how people think and interact.
Isn't it funny? And then, I mean, I don't know how many thousands of people are at that school, but they're always like, hey, did you know so-and-so? It's like, oh my gosh, yeah. Oh, are you kidding? That was my roommate in college. How do you know them? It's just hilarious.
I love it.
So, that's so cool. As we start to land today, I just want to ask if there's any simple tips that you can share with somebody listening.
Absolutely.
That, maybe just wants to try something before, they run. They just want to walk a little bit before they run. What would you suggest to them, Kimjera?
So I would say first and foremost, sit down and figure out, most important thing, what problem are you solving? Okay. Every business is in the business to solve a problem. So what problem are you solving for your potential customers? That would be probably number one. And start talking about that in how that is going to benefit them. Like, what does success look like for them once you've solved that problem? So I would say that's number one. Number two, design your customer, understand who they are. Build a persona or a profile around them. We do not do that enough in this industry. We assume we know them. Where do they shop? Where do they eat? What Facebook groups are they in? Try and really understand them at a level that you can then make messaging relatable to them.
Oh, that's
and then I would probably say, in addition to that, make sure you're telling a story about your customer, not about you. Like, it doesn't take a lot in your messaging. And a couple tricks are, look at your website, look at your marketing, and everywhere that you're saying I or we, flip to you or your, right? You can take advantage of my 25 years of experience. You can, you deserve X, Y, and Z. Just simple statements that show empathy and show understanding. People will go, ooh, you're right, I do.
Wow.
And that's how they're going to go, oh, you get me. You like,
Yeah.
you understand me, and I want to do business with you.
That's cool. We actually did that early on in our website. Instead of, it doesn't say about me, it says about you. And so it's kind of a unique spin on that. But I want to ask a question about it's interesting that you say design your customer. Because we do a lot of training in the customer experience world, and my book is about improving the customer experience.
Yeah.
And so what I use is the Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head. And because you can create your own customer, right?
Okay.
Now, what's scary about that is going through TSA with Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head, it doesn't usually get it doesn't.
Little awkward.
Yeah, exactly. They look at me, they look at this, and they want to ask, but they don't, So I just let her lie right now. But I mean, how do we really design a customer, because they are who they are? I mean, and is it narrowing down and thinking that you can't sell to everybody, and you're looking for
it's
specific
niching
things?
down for sure. Yeah, it's figuring out the lane of who you're going to do. So a perfect example of this is Red Bull. So Red Bull was entering the market when you think of all of the beverages, Coke, Pepsi, Sprite, all the million beverages. So here you have Red Bull going, I have no money, I have no notoriety. What the heck am I going to do? What they did was ingenious. They disrupted the market by saying, we are going to own those people who are in extreme sports. That is our customer. And we are going to know everything about them. We are going to relate to them. All of our messaging and our marketing is going to be about them. And they literally took over all of the extreme sport category. Okay. And so then they got their shelf space. Then they got their marketing was able to get them into stores and things. Yep. But before that, they didn't have that ability. So they designed their customer first and said, this is an open lane. Nobody in a beverage is owning for, extreme sports. And being that we are a beverage that's supposed to give you energy, it's a perfect segue. So designing your customer is one way to disrupt if there's an open lane in your industry. So it's all very strategic and specific to who other people are talking to in that industry. And can you find, when everyone's going this way, can you go that way and define a customer that no one's talking to in that way?
Sure. Wow. That's so cool. So what problem are you solving? Design your customer and make your story about them. So 3 really simple yet probably business changing concepts. If you take those to heart, I'm guessing there's going to be some real positive change there. For the people that don't want to do that, but they'd rather have you do that, Kimjera, what's the best way for people to reach out to you?
Yeah. So go to my website, evolveglobalmarketing.com. Right on there on the top right-hand corner and all the way down, you will see buttons that you can book on my calendar. So if you're very serious about marketing and you want to disrupt your industry and you want a competitive advantage, book a call with me and I'll, spend 15 to 20 minutes and we'll talk about what you're doing today and how we might be able to support you and answer questions that you might have. So that's kind of step 1. It's my time. I give it away for free readily, because I truly care. Whether you work with me or not, you're going to walk away with some really great tips. And that's what's important, and some strategies. But that's probably the best way to do it. And then you can also find me all over social media. So my name is very unique.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're the first Kimjera on the show. So congratulations. But then again, you're the first Whittington. So you hit both categories. So.
I don't know how that happened.
That's so cool. As we say each week, if you invested this time and you don't get anything out of it, I'm sorry, but there was a ton of value here. Now, you might not think that it's for you. I get that. But the reality is there's some really good stuff here. And if you walk away and you go to your next activity and you don't do anything with this, then that's on you. Don't get mad at Kimjera or me because your life didn't change. She gave you an opportunity to connect with her directly, to be able to share a little bit about your story. She'll share with you probably some quick ideas. And then you decide if you want those, you want some help with those, or you want to be able to, do that on your own. And so hopefully what we shared today was of value. I took a ton of notes. I'm super excited that disruption is no longer a bad word that it was prior to. So thank you again so much. And again, jump on evolveglobalmarketing.com. And when I was on there, yeah, there's tons of information, and there's, speak with me here, click here. There's a bunch of ways to get to the main person there, the CEO and founder of Evolve Global Marketing. So thank you, Kimjera, so much for hanging out with us, and can't wait to hear all the great stories from all the people around the world. Call today. This is like a telethon. Don't go to your next event. Don't go to your next activity, but jump on a call with Kimjera so that she can help you disrupt whatever industry you're in. The only people that don't want you to call are your competitors, because they're saying, no, don't call her right now. You're fine the way you are. So thanks again for investing time, and can't wait to keep learning more from you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you guys. Thanks so much.